week after saying, I didn't know she meant no. You know, no is no, and you protect yourself. This young man raped this child. She went home and reported to her, Genesis 34, read it, reported to her brothers. And the father, she reported this matter to her father in verse 5, when Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter, and his sons were with the cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they came. There comes a time when daddy, well, not just a time, but daddy must always draw the line in the sand, as it were.
Yeah.
He held his peace. You really shouldn't hold your peace when your child has been violated like this, sir.
Amen.
You know, he held his peace. And the young ones came. And when they heard what happened, they went to pay a visit to this rapist. And you know, these guys were very deceptive. These guys propose, you know what? You want to marry our sister? Well, you gotta be, we are religious people. All the men in this tongue here gotta be circumcised. And those guys wanted so much this marriage, they agreed to the circumcision. And so they circumcised. I mean, foreskins were all over this tongue. They just circumcised them one after the other. You know what happened? 3 days after, these young men revisited the city. Circumcision of grown men, I am sure, is painful, especially 3 days after. They could hardly walk, they could hardly stand. And these brothers went on a rampage and shed blood. The father was silent when he should have made a statement.
You know, issues in families, especially when they're adverse, should be dealt with frontally, and there should be no delay in the way, you know, especially as a father, especially as the patriarch, as the head, in how you deal with issues. The longer you take to deal with issues, you know, situations can fester and only become even more dangerous, and it can affect not only, you know, not only your family, but it can affect a whole host of people. And therefore, as fathers, we have that responsibility. If we see our children is going wrong, or if something in the family is wrong, we have to deal with it frontally, deal with it up front, do not delay.
You know, leadership is the beginning and the end of management. You know, I wonder why the father never brought clear direction to this issue and left it over to his sons to determine. And these young brothers, full of anger and revenge, and you and I can't be angry and bitter and make objective decisions. Set these people up for their death. It's such a dangerous thing. But I blame daddy, you know, the man who is responsible for the entire house, responsible to bring order and direction to everyone. You know what, there are times as I was growing up, I left my mother's home at 26. And you know, while I was there are times you made decisions, and even though you were an adult, they would say to you, you won't do that in this house, you know. Until you move out and start turning your own key, then is when you may try that one. Don't practice that one here. And I think sometimes as parents, we just need to do some of those things and do not allow our children in their youthful enthusiasm to destroy themselves.
You know, what we look at is consequences of decisions made. And it is seen, it is known that when parents don't make the right choices, the children can end up suffering. Look at what happened with this young lady that was used by her mom, and this next young lady that was abused. The children seems to be the target, and the parents must be the protectors. If we don't look out for them, we know that the vultures, those that are out there with ulterior motives, can destroy our children.
I remember as a 16-year-old reading a book by James Hadley Chase. Yes, 15, 16. The vulture is a patient bird. And you just reminded me of that. But while Jacob was silent and quiet and dumb when Dinah was raped and abused, Jacob is about to die. Genesis 49. And the man who lost his voice has now found his voice
Experience, boy.
in the face of death. And I tell you, that's the time when you want your father to say very few words to you. That's the time you want his words to be very deliberate and intentional. And you want them to be of a particular genre. They must be blessing. You don't want him to involve a whole set of other things. He's in bed. He has a long line to go through. His sons, he calls them before him. And he said, hearken unto Israel your father. Yes, this is how God wants his families to be raised. Parents have the power, especially fathers, to pronounce either blessing or a curse. And we have to be quite aware of this. He calls his firstborn, Reuben, call him by name. In verse 3 of Genesis 49, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the preeminence of dignity and the preeminence of power. I mean, a wonderful introduction. I think Reuben relaxed. And then he said, boiling over's water, thou shalt not have the preeminence, because, and I'm reading the American Standard Version, thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then thou defilest thou it. He went up to my couch. Apparently, in the many years before this incident, polygamy was very much in order. And Jacob had a young woman in his harem, and his son, his eldest son, played with his father's woman. There was no word of rebuke them, but now here he's saying to his son, you are as unstable as water. You know, you will not have any preeminence. None, no preeminence. He calls his next son. Simeon and Levi are brethren. They are instruments of cruelty, the King James says. The American Standard Version says they are weapons of violence are their swords. Yes. Simeon and Levi, weapons of violence. You know which incident he's referring to? The same one. And the list, gentlemen, the list is unerring. I don't know. I never had this experience. I don't know if any one of us ever had this experience.
This was a father. He was a real father, I would say, because this is a man, he was a family man. He had time, good time spent with his sons, that he could have sit or lie and tell them everything about them.
This is how I put it. I believe when you look at Jacob's life, you know, experience teaches us, and experience really taught him. And out of those experiences, I think he took time out to evaluate and examine his children. And so he knew them well. And so at this last stage of his life, he's able to speak and pronounce be the blessings or curses over their lives. I would have loved for him to deal with some of these issues much earlier rather than deal with them now. But I am happy that he has learned from life. And some of us could very well do learn from the experiences of the past. And don't continue to go on the same way all the time. Because at this time, Jacob surely decided, I will speak. I will not die without saying a word to these brothers.
Well, we must know that sin has consequences. And if that is, is not into your liking and understanding, let me put it this way, as one of our local songwriters says, the evil that men do lives after them. So you're not going to get away with issues. I urge you to deal with issues in your life so that God can help you. And the best place to come is to the Father himself. Come to the Lord and confess those faults so that, you know, your life can go on and you can be forgiven.
But this scorecard wasn't all negative. Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey, my son. Thou art gone up, he stooped down, he couches a lion, and as a lioness, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the obedience of the peoples be, binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass colt unto the choice vine. He hath washed his garments in wine, and his vestures in the blood of grapes. I mean, Judah.
What
A man of power and authority, and here's the old man about to die, and just as how he pronounced an indictment on Reuben, Simeon and Levi, he liberates Judah with a simple word. He liberates Zebulun, sets him forth as a navigator, navigating the seas. Thou shalt dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be up for a haven of ships, and his border shall be upon Sidon. Is a blessing, not only controlling his immediate domain, but sending him out to become a mariner, a man who would control the ocean, a man who will have ships. I mean, all that, this is the power. The scripture is very clear about life and death, where they reside. They reside in the tongue. There's the power of the tongue. And so he was blessing, pronouncing upon his children.
You know, Pastor, I think the whole issue here is the father, the head of the home, whether he deals with issues as they occur or he waits, as we see the case here with Jacob as he was about to die, pronouncing not only blessing and curse, but he was telling his sons how he saw their lives. I want to draw from that as a father. I would want to deal with issues as they arise and to correct my children and to tell them where I would have seen them err and to encourage them, you know, and pronounce blessings on their lives as they grow. So they grow with the understanding, knowing what is right from what is wrong, and so they would inculcate similar values and similar ways to deal with their children when their children come along.
The Bible is powerful, for it shows you both sides of life, both the strengths and the weaknesses, and I love it for that, because we can learn from their experiences.
You know, as we bring this program to close this evening, we live in a culture where we are seeing every kind of abuse, from parents, from children, from outsiders. We need to draw strength, and we need to go back to this book that tells us how we have been situated by God among the face of the world, and the kind of authority and responsibilities that we have as parents and as children. It is not just parents who have a duty. Every time children talk about freedoms and rights, I see one big word flashing before me: responsibilities. We are all responsible. Be blessed. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for being part of Choices. Remember, you can join us at First Assembly for any of our regular weekly services. I'm Sunisha on behalf of the SEP, reminding you that your whole life is the sum of your choices. God bless you.